Welcome to Inside Games, the only gaming news channel brave enough to warn you that GTA 6 might already be an overpriced NFT hellscape. Be careful.
This is all according to some worrying comments from Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick following an actual, for real, finally official announcement for Grand Theft Auto 6 earlier this week.
Despite the announcement, though, it's important to remember we still don't know anything about Rockstar Games' next entry in this legendary franchise. I mean, hell, we don't even know if it's going to be called Grand Theft Auto 6, right? The announcement tweet merely refers to it as the next entry in the series, but still, gotta call it GTA 6. Come on.
We gotta go with what we know, and there have been a few rumors about the game's setting and release date that we'll talk about in a bit, but first, we gotta get to that ugly, greedy executive talk.
Much like executives at Ubisoft and Square Enix, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick minced no words in his support for NFT technology and his desire to integrate them into the company's games in an interview with GamesIndustry.biz published this week.
I don't want to read this, but I will. All right, quote, "We believe that NFTs are real, and why wouldn't they be? We believe in digital goods, and we've been selling digital goods for a very long time. We believe in rare goods. We believe in collectibles. We're highly convinced there's an opportunity for NFTs to fit with Take-Two's offerings in the future."
It's not very promising, obviously, especially if you were hoping GTA Online would get less stingy and exploitative with its monetization rather than more. I don't think anybody ever thought they were going to get less stingy. Zelnick does at least acknowledge that NFTs in their current state have a few issues, expressing concern at the, quote, speculation going on, and that, quote, losing money on a speculation is not a good experience, so we're going to stay away from speculation.
Cool, I guess. It's good to acknowledge that little, I guess. Again, it's really hard to imagine a situation where speculation doesn't happen at all, or that Take-Two would even give a shit if it did. The whole point of NFTs is creating artificial scarcity around digital goods. When something is scarce, people with excess money speculate on it. It just happens. You can see that happening on Steam with rare items for Dota or Team Fortress 2.
So yet again, sounds like an executive's just kind of paying lip service to protecting the consumer experience without saying anything substantial about how that will actually happen, which is what we see very often from executives.
So we could possibly hold out hope that Zelnick isn't talking about Grand Theft Auto when discussing the air quotes potential of NFTs. But other comments make it sound more connected rather than less.
Yeah, when asked if he thought GTA 5's upcoming re-release on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series would cannibalize Grand Theft Auto Online, Zelnick again reiterated his dedication to hurtling headlong into an over-monetized future hellscape.
Now, Zelnick said, quote, "You always have to be willing to be fresh. You have to be willing to bring consumers what they want. The minute you try to protect the past, you become irrelevant."
This is actually a really good quote. I mean, he's totally right.
He's right.
By the way.
He's right.
Yeah.
We're not disputing how right he is.
While this comment related to GTA Online competing with itself, it could also apply to future iterations of GTA Online, one that might launch alongside GTA 6, for example, in explaining how a similar service would avoid competing with the previous one. Basically, by implementing a new monetization structure that can avoid self-competition and then reach a different audience willing to spend money in a different way.
That's a pretty cynical interpretation of the quote. I mean, we're pretty cynical today in general, but it's difficult to not read it cynically when the rest of Zelnick's comments are very gung-ho about finding the money and only anecdotally acknowledging how it might actually impact player experience or their products in general.
Yeah, and really, honestly, the question we're very honest with you here in the audience. Why should he care? I mean, really, like according to Take-Two's Q3 earnings release, the company said that Grand Theft Auto, the trilogy, the definitive edition, outperformed sales expectations. Despite that, one of the worst launches I've ever seen. Horrible production values, bizarre artistic choices, embarrassing glitches. They were memed everywhere, and it outperformed the sales expectations.
Bruh.
Yeah, to be fair, they didn't say what that was, but they had expectations and outperformed them even with the quality, so that's not great. To go on, Take-Two even specifically credited the GTA remakes alongside NBA 2K22 and continuing sales of Red Dead Redemption 2 for their better-than-forecast results, with Zelnick saying, quote, "We feel very good about how the title has performed commercially, but also acknowledged, quote, we have some quality issues," in the interview.
In summary, the CEO of Take-Two sees NFTs as the future and a buying audience that clearly doesn't hold their games to the same standards that the core audience does. And the people that are watching the show, probably the core audience, and we don't often see the buying audience. And that's kind of what we talk about a lot. And you add all this up, it's more likely than not GTA 6 will feature NFTs.
Because again, there's no reason not to. The big audience in GTA and GTA Online are big audience games. They don't know and they don't care. But if you sit them down and have them play a game and be like, hey, that jacket, you could sell it. They're gonna eat that up. It's actually, so it's kind of on the way. Yeah, there is a slim ray of hope though, slim, and it comes from Zelnick himself.
During Take-Two's Q3 2022 investor call on February 7th, one investor asked Zelnick about the company's future approach to single-player games due to the emphasis on single-player experiences in the most recent GTA Online expansion called The Contract.
Zelnick responded saying, quote, "We know that there's a role for single player. I believe there will be a role going forward. Then there are certain games that are meant to be only multiplayer experiences."
He continued saying, quote, "Rockstar is known for storytelling, and yes, Rockstar is also known for these fantastic open world experiences. They clearly do both really well. And the contract shows, as you just said, that consumers are really excited about Rockstar's storytelling ability. And at the same time, we had a great quarter with Grand Theft Auto Online. So there's a lot of excitement there. So the answer is sort of all of the above."
And that's the perfect CEO answer, right? Are you going to make this or that? Yes, because it all makes money. So that's good to some degree. At least we have Take-Two acknowledging the value of deep single-player experiences, which is, in this case, equally reinforced by sales numbers. So they actually have a reason to say it, and we have a reason to believe it. It's not just lip service. As part of the earnings release, Take-Two announced that GTA 5 sold another 5 million units in the quarter for a total sales of 160 million.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my God.
It's bananas. While Red Dead Redemption 2 sold another 4 million units for a total of 43 million, which is still astronomically huge for games like that.
They're massive numbers. GTA 5 is just a whole sales universe unto itself, which stands to get another boost with the pending release on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S and X. It's insane.
Yeah, you can hang your hat on Red Dead 2 sales too, which in my mind, and hopefully to Take-Two, clearly demonstrates that there is value in a deep and unmonetized single-player experience that can move units and generally contribute to the perception of quality in a product.
Yeah, they've got Red Dead Online, but you're right. I mean, like, I think it's pretty well accepted that Red Dead Redemption 2 is a unmonetized single-player experience, and that's what's selling is that experience, not necessarily Red Dead Online. If we take Zelnick's comments at face value, particularly his, quote, all of the above statement, we can probably assume that GTA 6 will have a similar structure to GTA 5. That means a classic Rockstar-style single-player open-world experience paired with an online mode that's a nightmare of monetization and NFT speculation.
Which, I don't know, do you really play GTA Online expecting it to not be a nightmare in some capacity? So it's just a different kind of nightmare. What does that mean, though? If we assume that GTA 6 will launch with another iteration of GTA Online, that's an assumption, and if we assume that it will support NFTs, what would that look like?
So we suppose there's some cool ideas we kind of haven't thought of here, but the obvious ones are not very appealing. We figured the game will feature limited edition cars, clothing, guns, and those are all minted as NFTs, meaning they're earnable, buyable, and tradable by players, all of you. With Take-Two, of course, they gotta take a small cut, just a little taste. Just a little taste of every transaction, every single transaction, millions and millions of them. Really, all you have to do is look at Steam to see how digital items and artificial scarcity can affect games, and how creating an economy of trading can set you up for a lifetime of passive income, which Steam has just mastered.
Yeah, it's crazy. They make trading cards, which are nothing, and then people buy and sell them, and then every time that happens, Steam gets a couple of pennies. It's brilliant, but it's also a great template for what we're probably going to see in many more games. Unfortunately for you, me, and everyone else that might want to play GTA Online, that means there will be many people who only play that game to harvest and sell those items, in addition to people speculating on their value as assets in a secondary economy. So yeah, if you thought GTA Online was already bad with hackers and people who just want to win, imagine how bad it will be when all the crypto hype bros flood servers in an attempt to farm out something dumb like a solid gold boonie hat or a limited edition car horn or something like that.
Man, they really got to work on their hacking. They got to work on like their anti-cheat stuff if they're going to do anything like this. Is there thousands or millions of dollars at stake? Oh, God. Oh, what a nightmare.
That's the only tiny possible upside, is that if there's actual money involved, they have to protect the integrity of those items as they're earned or traded, which means GTA Online has to get locked down way more than it is. Because if you can get in and hack out 100 boonie hats and then sell them because you legitimately own them because you hacked it open or you cheated, that sucks. And I don't like Rockstar's laissez-faire attitude towards hacking in GTA Online is a very worrying proposition there. It has to change, right? Or they don't care. Like, maybe they don't care. Maybe somebody just has a monopoly on boonie hats because they hacked them all out, and Rockstar doesn't give a shit because they make their money either way. I don't know.
Poetically, turning GTA Online into a capitalist speculative nightmare where players are more concerned about extracting digital assets than actually playing the game and having fun would make the game a living and breathing satire of shallow, overcapitalized American culture. How perfect. It'd be a shame to it really honestly would be a shame to see this game become the exact thing it makes fun of, though. Which, by the way, maybe that's what they always intended. Maybe they were doing a satirization of their own game.
I mean, maybe if you want to give them like 4-dimensional galaxy brain thinking, then perhaps. What's weird is GTA has become bizarrely more intellectual in its satire than less, so that seems a little too on the nose. We can hope Rockstar at least will resist really on the nose stuff like promotional tie-ins with real life brands. Mixing that with NFTs, it's just like, ugh, I can see it happening, and I know people are really excited, or executives are really excited about it. You know, something like Fortnite. They launch promotional campaigns for every last entertainment brand under the sun. Their biz dev is cashing checks left and right. At least in comparison with that, GTA Online has maintained some boundary between real-world promotions and its in-game universe. That line does seem to be eroding, though. Real-world brands appeared in GTA Online for the first time ever in February 2021. Now, those are all like indie, low-level street brands connected with music culture. It does feel like it fits Rockstar Games and how tied into music culture and street culture they can be. But still, it doesn't feel good when you start connecting it with NFTs.
We can only hope that Rockstar Games considers it a step too far to have genuine, limited edition Nike shoes, Tesla cars, Supreme shirts for sale inside of Grand Theft Auto Online or Grand Theft Auto 6 Online, whatever you want to do there. But you can bet there are so many biz dev executives just salivating over the opportunity. Well, however much one can salivate after annihilating just a fat rail of coke.
So wait a minute, before we get too depressed, if we can avoid that, we should remind ourselves that we know almost nothing about Grand Theft Auto 6. And again, that's not even its name, including if it will launch with another GTA Online. It's a reasonable expectation, though, given that Red Dead 2 launched with one. They don't seem very concerned about competing with GTA Online, so launching another one seems like a shoo-in.
Yeah, it's a good point, though, Lawrence. We're this is all speculation, so keep that in mind. You know, we could be being way too cynical about all this. So before we go cry in a dark room about the future of GTA Online, let's just recap what we know about GTA 6's single player. Again, it's not much, but it's just a collection of rumors with varying believability, but let's get to it.
Yeah, the biggest rumors so far came from who else? Tom Henderson, back in June 2021. In a report, Tom said that GTA 6 will return to Vice City in some capacity, in addition to featuring an in-game map that'll change over time due to in-game events, so kind of like Fortnite in that regard.
Henderson also reports that the game will feature multiple player protagonists like GTA 5, including a female hacker who will be considered the main protagonist. So if we know our female hackers, that means she'll wear a hoodie, dark eyeliner, and be so sarcastic, I can't wait.
Maybe talk like this and just be like, leave me alone. That's what hackers talk like. These details were vouched for at the time by Bloomberg writer Jason Schreier, who tweeted that, quote, everything Tom Henderson has said about the game matches up with what I've heard. That includes a projected release date of 2024 or 2025, which would put the release of a proper sequel to GTA 5 at 11 years, at least.
Which brings us to the next GTA 6 mystery. Why the absolute hell is this thing taking so fucking long?
It's been forever. Yeah, I mean, GTA 5 is really good. GTA Online I've had fun with, despite the crazy hacking and stuff, so if any game is supposed to last 10 years, GTA 5 is probably the one, but yeah, it's still weird. Schreier himself might actually be a factor in that. This throws all the way back to 2018. A Vulture article covering the launch of Red Dead Redemption 2 back in October 2018 contained a quote from then Rockstar co-founder Dan Houser describing 100-hour work weeks.
Ah, yes, I remember this. Schreier followed up on the concern for Rockstar working conditions with a Kotaku expose in April 2020, reporting that concern over developer conditions caused Rockstar to shift their working conditions and the scope of the upcoming GTA 6 to, quote, start out with a moderately sized release, which by Rockstar's standards would still be a large game. That is then expanded with regular updates over time.
It's reasonable to expect in this case then that a shifting production methodology, and especially trimming 100-hour work weeks back to 40-hour work weeks, would bump a game's release date by a year or two, at least. And that's not even accounting for how quarantine conditions may have affected the game's ongoing development.
Yeah, that aside, Rockstar Games' slowing release slate is pretty typical for games developers and publishers that get a service-based game off the ground. We have tons of examples of developers that once they get a service game up and running, they divert a lot of their resources to that instead of launching brand new products.
It's been more and more common in the past decade, especially. Going all the way back, Blizzard Entertainment, when they launched World of Warcraft in 2003, they went the next 2 decades and have only launched 5 games by my count, not including remasters and re-releases. That's kind of the shake and bake, is you get a service game off the ground and then you just launch remasters of everything else you've ever made. Bungie launched Destiny when they went independent in 2014 and they haven't launched another property since. Epic Games hasn't launched anything as a developer since Fortnite Battle Royale in 2017. Riot Games was only working on League of Legends for a decade plus, and they've only just recently started launching new properties in collaboration with other developers. So the list really goes on and on.
Yeah, there's a definite trend of game developers dedicating completely to service games because they make so much money once they get them off the ground and if they work. And it seems like Rockstar Games, because a lot of them do not work, and it seems like Rockstar Games might be in that cycle now that Grand Theft Auto Online just continues to just rake in that cash quarter after quarter.
You know, to Rockstar's credit, they do continue to release content updates for GTA Online, and they did ship another Rockstar scale game in 2018's Red Dead Redemption 2, even if that did get them in some hot water over the working conditions used to get it out the door. Perhaps it's simply too much for any one organization to simultaneously support an ongoing service while also working on massive content-rich single-player experiences. I can't think of too many examples of that happening.
Even if it does happen, Lawrence, quality tends to go down because then the focus is sort of scattered amongst all these different products at their company, and then they lose that BioWare magic, if you will. Or, more likely, once a game developer sees the rate of return on the development costs for service-based content versus just new or single-player IPs, there's just kind of no reason to try and develop single player or new IP when you got this service-based thing that's giving you passive cash.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like this goes, again, back to Valve. Once they found out that people will pay hundreds of dollars for Team Fortress hats, nobody wanted to make Half-Life 3 anymore. I mean, that's how it feels from the outside, but just imagine you're a single developer and you can make a hat. You can make a hat in a week that goes up and starts earning money. Or you can spend that time making like a prop in one level that requires 20 other people to work on it at the same time, and even when your level's finished, it's still not out in the wild and earning money. So, and just finishing games in general, again with that Red Dead 2 thing, it always seems like it's such a struggle. So you can work 100-hour weeks, or you can make a hat and go home. It's not a mystery to me if that is the case. You know, I'm speaking suppositionally here, just based on what I've heard from developers. But yeah, the working conditions in service games just seem so much more friendly to being a living human as a developer.
Unfortunately, a lot of consumers complain about it and hate them. They see them as money grabs, yet they are continuing to work. So, there's a interesting push and pull there of, like I said, you guys watching, you're the core audience, and I know a lot of you can't stand that service-based stuff. But there is a broader audience that is not watching the show. They are not complaining on Reddit, and they're spending, hundreds of dollars on GTA Online digital goods and stuff. So it's like there's an interesting dichotomy we have right now.
Yep. There's a core audience that used to have things made just for us. Now it's shifting to another mass market that's a little less finicky, but luckily there's still games being made. And I think even after, like Bruce, we were talking about this a bit, even if, yes, most mass market games probably will include NFTs or some kind of digital collection and selling technology in the future, just don't play them. You could just play indie games that continue to make games like they're stuck in the past and live a peaceful life.
Play Vampire Survivors. It's really fun. It's $3. Why not?
You'll blink and it'll be 3 a.m. You'll be shivering at your computer wondering what happened.
So all of this kind of may be why GTA 6 sounds like it's adding in that live service element, obviously, because GTA Online has just been so successful. So time will tell kind of how this whole thing turns out. Or if it's even true in the first place. We really don't know. This is so much of this episode is speculation, so take it with a grain of salt.